Hi everyone, welcome to El Diálogo Latino. Today, please join me in welcoming the Maryland State Delegate for District 47B, Delegate Deni Taveras. Delegate Taveras, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
To kind of get ourselves launched here, Delegate, you were formerly a part of the Prince George's County County Council. What motivated you to do the jump to the House of Delegates?
Well, I just felt that there was a lack of voice for our community, and I felt that I had the skill set to be able to really fill that void. And so that was the reason why I ran. And I noticed it because I started working in my condo association, and I saw how folks were abused, you know. And so once I stepped in and I saw the dramatic change that I could do there, I was able to replicate that at the council level.
I see. So based on some of those, harshness that you saw in the community, some of that mistreatment, what are some of the policy areas that this sort of motivated you to pursue your legislation in?
Well, in the county council, I did several things. I instituted a program called the Immigration Services and Language Access that is now being implemented throughout the county to ensure that people are able to receive services in their language of choice. Now, I also had a program that provided individuals that were in deportation proceedings with universal representation. As you know, or maybe you don't, most immigrants do not have a right to a lawyer before the court system, the immigration court system. And this program provided them with a free lawyer if they could not afford one. And so those were some of the big programs. I also did things that were very instrumental in our community, passing laws such as the nuisance board that is now implemented to expedite some of the more problematic issues we see in the county, as well as rooting out criminal activity in apartments, where you could basically even take the landlord to jail, and if they're not responsive in rooting out brothels, drug dealing, or other crimes occurring in apartments.
That's impressive. That's impressive. It seems, Delegate, you've done a lot for our community. And I want to highlight some of your background. What was it like, being a person of color, navigating, what is, the hostile field of legislative work?
It was challenging. It was challenging. I mean, you have to persevere. When you do, you have to prove people wrong. People will see you and they think that you're not capable of doing the work, and you come in and it's like you show your credentials and you show your experience, and once they start to see the fruit of your labor, for me that was 10 billion, 9 schools, 2 libraries, and a rec center that I was able to leave fully funded. And those schools now, 3 of those are open and operating, and 1 is about to break ground this month, and 2 are in permitting. So I feel very humbled at all I was able to achieve, and we were able to bring in about $10 million for businesses along the Purple Line, and that includes us up to this year.
Congratulations, that's an impressive achievement. Based on, again, some of that policy work that you're doing, what are some of the gaps that currently you're seeing in your district that you want to address?
Yes, right now what I'm seeing, and it's so unfortunate, I feel that there's a strong gap on addressing the needs of children addicted to drugs. There used to be kind of a policy in the streets, I would say. I'm a child of the 80s, and crack hit our community very hard. And in the community that I was raised in, 2 out of 3 individuals were not eligible to vote because they have felonies, right? So it was very challenging. But despite that, there was kind of like an understanding in the streets that children were not touched. Right. You did not sell to children. And that's no longer on the table. Like, on the contrary, you start selling to children. This new batch of criminals have no sense of morality with regards to children. And so the selling and the dealing starts with children. And it's a problem. It's a problem. And now I'm seeing a lot of children homeless, living on the streets, drug addicted. So it's an issue. And we don't have any beds right now for long-term recovery. And we have very minimal beds for detoxification. And we need to check to make sure that that detoxification process actually works for these children, because I've been able to save about 7 of them so far, but I lost one already. Within a day that he was out, he was already using, and now, as of this week, he's into harder drugs than when he went in.
I'm so sorry to hear that. So are some of these, do you think there needs to be, I guess, additional support to ensure that these detox programs are more effective, or additional support to the...
That, and we need a long-term facility for these children to live in, like a boarding school style facility, where they are, where they're able to kind of rehabilitate long-term.
I see. Well, with a lot of the legislative work that you're doing, how do you balance, impacting, your district community in general, the state of Maryland, as well as the high percentage of Latino population in your district?
Well, I just try to make sure that I am writing legislation that's sensitive to my community, in addition to the other things that I write. Like, there are things that I'm concerned with at the national level, like Rudy's Law, where, baby food had heavy toxic elements. So those are things that, I like to, I worked on. But I also want to be able to bring harm reduction legislation this year that will get ahead of the curve of the addiction. Because right now we're really focusing all our eggs and all of our energy on Narcan, which has significantly reduced overdose deaths. But that just means that the kids are now using the Narcan to mitigate their addiction. So they're managing their addiction with the Narcan.
I see. So again, although this is something that has to be addressed, as it relates to making sure that Narcan is available with the community, are there some initiatives that are out there to make sure that it's being provided to, like education facilities, things of that nature?
There's a lot. There's a lot happening there, and there's training in English and in Spanish on Narcan. But I like to that's very responsive to the problem, and I want to be preventive. So what I want to do is that I want to be able to significantly provide strips and bracelets, so that if children are presented with pills, they're able to test the pills to see if it has fentanyl in the pill or any methamphetamines. So that way they don't ingest the pill, and therefore they do not become addicted from jump. And the same thing with bracelets. If something is spiked into their drink, they can put the bracelets up against the drink, and if there's a reaction, therefore they can be able to assess if the drink has been spiked in some way.
That's fascinating technology. Based on that statement, do you see that there's an issue of the usage of drugs, like you mentioned, fentanyl, in the district that you're aiming to address?
No, definitely those strips we need them in every school and in every club, nightclub, everything that where those things are being anything, anywhere that business is taking place, we need those strips there. The way this is similar in reaction to the way when HIV came on the scene and no one wanted to face the issue, we had to be creative with the use of condoms and put them in bathrooms and nightclubs and in different private places to make sure that it was accessible to everyone.
I see. Circling back a little bit, I want to talk a little bit more about Rudy's Law, which was a piece of legislation you put out last year that gained national attention. Can you run us a little bit through the thought process that led to the developing of this piece?
No, clearly. I have my chief of staff was interested. Jason Nunez is a father, and he saw this as he saw a legislative, not the legislative, like a news piece on it, and from Channel 7, and he said, hey, maybe we could do something on this, and we investigated it, and we saw that a legislator had put in legislation in California. It was the only piece of legislation across the entire country to label baby food. So the thing is that we started to do research on the fact that there was a congressional hearing on the matter, and there had been no response under the Trump administration, and there had been slow response, some response, but slow response under the Biden administration. So we felt a sense of urgency and when the California law passed, we were able to somewhat duplicate it and enhance it here so that we could consider it. And we were able to successfully pass it. And now we're proposing it we just had a resolution pass in committee for the National Hispanic Council of State Legislators, and we're going to propose it nationally so all state legislators consider it across the country, including, that's the reason why I have to leave soon, but I have a meeting with a Virginia delegate who wants to emulate the law in the state of Virginia.
Well, congratulations on that very well-deserved success with Rudy's Law. It seems, again, that, as a delegate, that's part of the Health and Government Operations Committee, you balance both that healthcare legislation as well as other pieces of legislation in other sections to benefit your district. I also want to talk about some of the work you do in economic development, because I know, for example, this last session, you did some work with contracting legislation. Can you tell us a little bit more on some of that?
Well, I put in some legislation in the past where we were able to put in that if any building or a strip mall or a commercial facility was dilapidated, and meaning that the owner was not taking care of the property properly, they could have a taking if it's within a bid.
I see.
And so there could be a eminent domain case. And once that happened, now we see that at least we're starting to see that happening in the sense that it initiated people to either sell or remake a lot of the properties that were dilapidated. And it's exciting because we're seeing that at the old Lee's in my district. In terms of the things that I've been able to do, in terms of economic development, I've been able to get $10 billion invested in my district. So and that's as county council, and a lot of it is still coming to fruition now. So you may see that in the new build, the redesign of the mall at Prince George's, all the buildings, all the new apartments and condominiums that are now being constructed around the mall. The Editor's Park was one of my first. Riverside at West Hyattsville. We transferred over Kaiser Permanente from Toledo Drive over to Ager. We were able to do now the Toledo apartments. We have 6 at American Boulevard that is about to open up. They're just finalizing the final touches on it. And I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. Canva, which is across the street from Busboys and Poets, that was a development I approved as well. And so, and under my jurisdiction, we have Studio 3807, which actually kind of launched it all on Route 1. So everything along Route 1 from, I want to say, East-West Highway all the way to like the DC borderline has been like really transformed with Era, Pennyroyal Station, and it's been really great. I still have one project I want to finish off there, which is bringing in about 30 murals in the back at this one area that has the largest concentration of artists.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. I mean, this is the kind of work I love to do, you know, like just on my time. And yeah, so I'm very proud of all the work I've done. I wish we would have been able to do more in terms of preservation, because that speaks to a lot of gentrification. But in terms of affordability, we were able to preserve to 99 years Hamilton Manor at West Hyattsville, because we knew I had more control over the West Hyattsville situation. So we were able to preserve housing to remain affordable for almost 100 years, for 99 years there. And we did the same at Victoria and Bedford Station, across from La Union Mall, along the Purple Line as well.
We love to hear about that economic boom. And I know you also do a lot of work in also protecting a lot of these booming businesses. Again, I want to recall some of the legislation you did, especially as it relates to contractors and ensuring that you know, certain practices are followed in preventing. Yes, exactly. Would you be able to speak a little bit on that as well?
For sure. So we were having some concerns on the wage theft issue. Yes. And so we worked in tandem. So there were 3 legislators that kind of worked on a particular piece of legislation. So we wanted to make sure on the first part that every employer will provide, whether you're a contractor, subcontractor, or employee, you were providing in a person's paycheck all the hours that the person has worked and how much they were earning. So we wanted to make sure that everything was being reported in the pay stub, and was maintained and accrued over time. Exactly. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if the person did not comply with doing that, they were going to be penalized for not doing that. That's the second piece of legislation. And then the third piece, which is my piece, which is basically if they were found to have been guilty of wage theft, not just in any state in the country, they were prohibited from doing business in the state of Maryland with the state of Maryland for 5 years.
Impressive. Again, we have to congratulate you on the success, especially in establishing, again, this 3-piece method to ensure and protect the economic development of the state of Maryland. what are some of the
our workers.
And our workers, exactly.
66% of workers in construction are Latinos. 7 out of 10 are Latinos. So we need to make sure that we're protecting the people who, the Comptroller came out with a report this year that said without these individuals, we wouldn't be able to function as a state. And so I think that to me, it is crucial that we are taking care of those least of us in our communities who are doing the backbreaking work that these individuals do and do so humbly.
Focusing again on that topic of data and the studies that have been put out there, you also put out a study on the economic impact of new Americans in Prince George's County. Can you speak to us a little bit on that as well?
Yes, I can. We're talking about the fact that I want to mention that at the state level we have, I believe, an earned income of $55 billion as a state. But in Prince George's County, I want to be able to extrapolate this study and do it statewide. But at the county level, we have new Americans are generating, they have earned income of $6.1 billion. $6.9 billion. They have spending power of $5.1 billion. They pay in taxes $1.8 billion and are $12 billion of the county's GDP. And what that means, to put it in context, is that 1 out of every $5 that the county generates is the revenue that the county has is generated by new Americans. 1 out of every $5.
That's a significant economic impact on behalf of the new American community. Again, basing ourselves on this, for this upcoming session, what are some of the things that you wish would be addressed legislatively, in addition to what you mentioned, the implementation of additional harm reduction, things of that nature, for the underrepresented communities of not only your district, but also the state?
I'm looking to see if there's a pot of money that we could create and set aside to help children who are in need of detox and do not have insurance. Okay, that's critical. And we need to find funds to acquire space to be able to place these children in a long-term facility so that they could be able to recuperate long-term. A campus-type environment that's healthy for them, welcoming, that is more like a boarding school, not a jail. And I feel that a lot of these children, for one reason or another, are being directed into the criminal system rather than allowing them to get the help they need, right? And I just feel that there's a gap, right? Because since the 80s till now, we just haven't had this equivalent influx of drugs the way it was with crack. When crack hit the streets, it's the same way fentanyl is hitting us now. That's how I feel. And because of that, because it's a very deliberate process, I feel very strongly that we need to be able to educate these kids that this is not an American movie. Like I had a child that said to me, "Oh, I just want to get off fentanyl, but I still want to take crack." Like there's like this disconnect that this is what kids do, that these drugs are not bad, and it's, I don't know how they were able to acquire that information, but there are people around these children that are misinforming them. So we've got to re-educate and say, hey, be careful who you're around. Don't take anything that anybody gives you. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and we need those kinds of people. Parents have to be able to be open to talk to their children, because I don't think that parents are talking to their children about these critical issues.
I see. Well, again, we appreciate, again, all the work that you're doing to make sure that, there isn't a prison pipeline situation for a lot of these kids, and rather that they're receiving, one, quality conversations with their community. Again, it takes a village to raise the children, and also to make sure that the children that are sadly impacted by this are supported. To the point of your legislative work, what are some of the ways that, for the community to contact you? If they want to voice their opinions on some of this work you're doing for the district, because again, this seems like a long-term plan that, could provide valuable, resources for the community. What are some of the ways that they can get in contact with you to voice, some of their concerns, their visions, what they hope to see in the government?
Well, they could contact me at my office at 301 858-3101. My email is Deni, Deni .Taveras @house.state.md.us. And I'm easily available. They could contact me in my personal cell too, 202-299-6562. I'm easy to reach.
And that's English and Spanish, right?
Sí, ellos me pueden llamar a mí en cualquier lenguaje y yo le contesto.
There you go. There you go. No, we love that. And to put a different spin on this, circling back to sort of the working legislation that you do, what is some how do we say this? What is some of the aspects of passing a bill, that the day-to-day constituent may not expect, may not expect?
How riddled it is about personalities.
Really?
Yeah, and it's I just, for me, it's been very interesting because I went from being in a council that was 11 people, and now I have 108, right? Or what is it? Almost 150.
141.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all told, yeah.
A much bigger pool of
A much. I'm talking about that in the Senate, right?
Yeah.
Like it's between 47 senators and 101.
Exactly.
So we've got to have 148. So it's like, so we've got all these people that I've got to be able to convince or not convince, talk to the people in the committee, and how careful I have to be in every step of the deliberation to be respectful, to make sure that I don't step on any toes, that I follow the right protocols, the process. It's very pedantic. It's very, so I think people don't realize how delicate of a maneuver it is to move a bill through. And I think another one is, which was really funny, was that some people say, oh, well, that bill is dead. No bill is dead until the end of session. I think my chief of staff learned that best when we passed the bill to protect teen moms, and that bill came basically 5 to 10 minutes before the end of session. We were able to successfully pass it. So there's no dead until you leave it all on the ground. You're gonna fight to the very end. I'm like, you're gonna have to scratch me.
There you go. No, again, and having to do that in 90 days or less, again, it's definitely extra pressure to all of that as well.
Indeed.
Again, to close out here, we want to know if you could give some advice to people in your district that want to get involved, or people in the state that see you as a role model and want to get involved in the political process, in advocating for their community, what is some of the advice that you can give them as a seasoned professional when it comes to this?
Well, join my newsletter so that they could receive what I'm up to. Email me, call me out to a coffee, tell me what they feel they need, because a lot of the people on the ground are the ones with the best ideas. Like there are people here who really are the ones telling me what to do. I'm here for you, right? I had at that time, a 9-year-old that told me, hey, I want seatbelts in my school buses. It's just safer. I don't know why there aren't any seatbelts. And I just got, William Ward is now the first net zero school in the whole county. And I was part of that creation as being part of the Climate Action Plan. And we just got it approved. We just got it recognized. It's the ribbon cutting's coming soon, but I went to the school. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. And I went to see these new school buses that are attached, delivering the students there, and lo and behold, what's on there? Seatbelts. And so I was able to get this law passed through the House, so we just need to get it passed through the Senate now to make sure that all school buses have seatbelts. Because these latest school buses, not only do they have seatbelts, but they're also electric vehicles. So they provide zero toxic emissions. So, I mean, the kid, a 9-year-old child, hit it right on the dime.
No, wonderful. Well, Delegate Taveras, we can't thank you enough for your time here today. Thank you so much. And we want to wish you a happy Hispanic Heritage Month.
You too, Jason. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today.